10 months ago, we left our home, our cat, our kibbutz, and set out on a mission to provide authentic, apolitical Middle East education to as many people as possible. So we came to North America and launched ITME on the Road 360. From classrooms to campuses, living rooms to lecture halls, we hit the road to educate, equip, empower. ITME stands apart. We don't tell people what to think. We give them the tools to think for themselves. Since September, we've delivered nearly 200 sessions in almost 100 cities across 40 states and provinces, providing clarity amidst chaos.
This has been one of the most impactful events that we've had on this campus.
Avi provides not only a perspective, but a method of education that I have yet to see anyone be able to provide.
By zooming out, you have to understand Israel, you need to understand the Middle East.
You're hearing all these slogans and all these, buzzwords here, right? You're not really getting the depth of the complexity of the conflict.
And this is by far the most in-depth and knowledgeable analysis,
which are not talked about as much or with as much clarity just in wider media.
And he brings that all together to make for really engaging, really informative sessions that teens and young people can follow along with.
As a Shia Ismaili Muslim student, it really filled a hole in my heart that I've been struggling with since October 7th.
In these critical times, equipping people with unbiased education isn't just important, it's essential. We're ready to keep going, but we can't do it alone. If you believe in the power of context over sound bites, nuance over noise, and education grounded in facts, then we invite you to join us. Together, we can shape a generation empowered with the context, courage, and critical thinking to lead.
Yes, we have Avi, and we see your beautiful home in Israel.
Hold on. There.
Yeah, holding. Wonderful. So nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Here with everyone in the platform. So what you guys missed is simply just I introduced Avi in 2 sentences and you, Maya, but we are going to officially start now. And basically what I mentioned earlier that I just posted 2 days ago that I'm taking a couple of steps back from my Instagram account. I got different opportunities in my life that I'm going to focus on. So after 10 years, I'm going to slow down on that platform. So you both are my last guests for quite some time. We have 60 minutes. I do have my questions. And to be frank, that's rare nowadays that you go to a lecture and you give essence and you get depth from geopolitical experts. What happened after October 7th is that Avi and Maya decided to embark on a 10-month journey in the United States of America, and also sometimes they went to Canada. So the bottom line is that they put everything in a suitcase, and for 10 months, they did nothing else, just educated people. They had over 180 programs that, programs were at universities or at campuses or various Jewish nonprofit organizations. And something that really need to be emphasized is that all these lectures and all these seminars or workshops are apolitical. And we're going to talk more about that because in today's world where everyone is either right or left or pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, how can we talk about the Middle East in an apolitical way? And then during the 10 months, something magical happens because they came up with an idea that is called the ITME Fellowship, meaning they had their first cohort of a fellowship last semester. 15 students were recruited, and they got a very, very heavy and diverse educational possibility and opportunity through this fellowship. And a couple of months ago, they all gathered in DC, Washington, DC, and they could present their projects, they could meet each other. And these students were from various universities with very different backgrounds, very different educational level about the Middle East. So that is the fellowship that we also gonna touch upon in this next hour, basically. And with that, I'm going to start the questions, and some of them, are very Avi tailored, as he is the speaker on these trips, but many of them are also to Maya, who is not only Avi's life partner, but also the partner in the whole educational system that they have built up. So Maya is the engine behind Avi, if I may say so. So the first question for me was, what was the very first thing you did when you got home after 10 months living out from your suitcase?
Said hi to the cat, who Avi had to unseat our cat. Maybe we should bring her just for a minute.
I was cleaning the house. I missed cleaning my house.
So I don't clean anything. So here's our cat.
No.
This is Kanafe. She was very sad when we came back. She was very sad when we were away. Say hi.
10 months is a long time.
So we said hi to her.
And if I recall well, you guys arrived back to Israel just a day before, or 2 days before the Iranian attack started. Do I remember well?
Yeah,
Correct.
and it was interesting because until we left, we had no sirens in our area ever. We're kind of in this bubble. We're like midway between Tel Aviv and Haifa in a way. We don't have a safe room in our house. We have a shelter across the street. But when there were some sirens and we were away, but actually that war was the first time that we actually experienced sirens. And Virag, you were with us, you and Didier, who's behind the scenes as well, when we were doing Avi was doing a webinar about the Iran-Israel war, and all of a sudden the sirens went off. We had to go to the shelter, and you continued to engage. So yeah, so that we got back just in time for that. Yep, that was an experience.
It was a reality check, I think, after 10 months in the USA. But you know something I maybe you didn't realize, but you know that you started your journey on September 11th? Was that purposeful, or was that a coincidence? Does it mean anything to you in hindsight?
I just always think it's going to be a cheaper day to fly, but it never is.
The truth is that I kept the ticket. I kept the flight ticket as a reminder of this very unique date, and also the fact that that was the day that we embarked our journey.
But I think it's also a very important date to always remember. So yeah, so it was deliberate. Yeah, it was deliberate.
You know, if you put your trip's reason into context, you know, October 7th, the aftermath, all the lines we know, if we look into history, you know, when we look into the Middle East as such, also we see how the lines are tying together. But with that, let's dive more into that. And, you know, why is understanding the broader Middle East is key to understanding Israel? So here I'm looking for concrete examples, because this is the motto and the mission statement of your organization. So why do you think it's so important?
Well, I'll try to give you, as I said, a concrete example right as of now. We are all talking, of course, in the international media about the situation in Gaza Strip, the dire situation, the challenges, and so on and so on. And in Western media, there is a lot of, naturally speaking, there is a lot of coverage of what's going on in Gaza Strip, but there is a lot of missing parts in the discussion in the West regarding what the Arab world says about the responsibility of Hamas of what's going on in Gaza Strip. Why is it so significant? Because the fact that this aspect is lacking in the Western discussion, in the end of the day, compromise the ability of people in the West, who are well-intended, of course, to really positively impact the trajectory of the story of Israel and the Palestinians. And I'm saying, look, if you really want to be helpful in that regard and help both Israelis and Palestinians a way out of this tragic loop, you need to understand what the wider perspectives are. You need, for example, to understand that in the Arab world, alongside, of course, the criticism on Israel, there is a huge criticism in the Arab world on Hamas for its responsibility for what happened to Gaza. And so that aspect is absent from the Western discussion, and it has to be there. It's not about advocacy. It's about really making people in the West understand that if you really want to understand what's going on and you want to positively impact, you have to bring into the discussion those pieces of information that are lacking in the Western discussion.
So my next question ties into this, and maybe it's just looking for more examples from you. What's missing from Western discourse about the Middle East that you believe your speaking engagements or the ITME fellowship is bringing to the table?
There are major significant components that are missing, like, for example, the power of ideologies that basically have nothing to do with the story of Israel per se. We are looking at political Islam or militant Islam or the power struggle in the region in Arab world over the identity of the national statehood, the challenges of societies in the region, many things that has nothing really to do with the story of Israel per se. You know, there is this huge power struggle within Islam between Sunnis and Shiites, power struggle within major cultures and civilizations, the Arabs, the Turks, the Persians. Again, it has nothing to do with the Israeli story or the story with Israel, but in the end of the day, it's very much, it enormously impacts the Israeli reality and the Israeli geostrategic horizons because of the simple fact that Israel is part of this region. So when people are lacking that knowledge, so they don't have the ability to understand what really makes this story tick, so to speak.
And also the power struggle within Palestinian society between Fatah, that rules the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas in Gaza,
Which is a reflection of these big power struggles, again, that has nothing to do with Israel. But in the end of the day, inevitably, it impacts Israel's reality and Israel's geostrategic environment.
Moving on, actually also tying perfectly here. During your 10 months, what specific challenges did you face delivering an apolitical content in such a polarized environment? Was it welcomed, or were people actually looking for you to take sides? And also a little bit of a follow-up question. Can you really talk about the Middle East in an apolitical way?
I'll start from the end of your question. The answer is yes. I got so many testimonials from so many different people, Jews and non-Jews, people that are coming from that ideological perspective or another ideological, and they all really emphasize the fact that my briefing was really apolitical. It was contextualizing information. It was factual based. It was not taking side. It was really educating people and helping them to understand the complex reality. So that's a testimonial as for itself. As for the first part of your question, my challenge starts even before I'm speaking. Why? Because the very fact that I'm an Israeli and I'm Jew and I'm an ex-intelligence official, unfortunately, some circles automatically kind of like discredit me or dislegitimize me because they're saying, well, if you're an Israeli and Jew and an ex-intelligence, you must be biased. You must be, taking side. And that is, I understand where they're coming from, but that is totally wrong. Because as I was always saying in the beginning of every session that I did, I said something very simple. I'm not a spokesperson. I'm not an Israeli spokesperson. I'm not a Palestinian spokesperson. Neither Israel nor Palestinians are paying my salary. I'm a Middle East expert, and my job is to provide you with an education. And I find out that when I'm starting the events with that, it helps to lower the walls of kind of like resistance to my, posture or my position. And indeed, in the end of my briefings, time and time again, I'm very happy to say that, and I'm very proud to say that I got so many great feedbacks from people. People are appreciating real knowledge and context, and they not less appreciate a very calm approach, which is not sensationalist. They don't need more of screamings and shouting and narratives and buzzwords and slogans. They need someone that will provide them in a calm way analysis of a complex reality, and they will walk away feeling that they have been empowered, they have been educated, and they are not being told what to think, but they are basically being provided a knowledge of which is very much needed for them to make their own decisions.
And I think that, I think that's one thing to say, he can say whatever he wants in the beginning, but like, I think as the people say after, as he said, we were at a JCC event in Orange County, which is in Irvine in Southern California. And this woman comes up to me after, and she was like, I was really skeptical. I walked in, I was very skeptical. And for whatever reason, And she says, this was the most amazing presentation I've ever seen. It's the first time a speaker, particularly an Israeli speaker, did not tell me what to think. And I think that's really the magic, that nobody walks out feeling that they're trying to be, that this speaker is trying to convince them to take one side or another.
I think it's very important, and here I'm going to mention your other kind of like a slogan or motto, is that you are teaching people how to think and not what to think. Which, again, you know, if you put everything into like an Israeli Hasbara context, it goes really much against that. And I can attest to that, that every lecture of yours that I have attended, or someone just mentioned here, and I'm going to also put up here, or your book that I've read, you know, everything is so factual based that after, as you said, I think it's the right word, you feel empowered, that you can enter into a discussion with a person who maybe feels or thinks absolutely different than you, and you can have a calm discussion. So I truly am in awe of that in today's climate. The next question, probably it's going to be a Maya question, but how has this journey changed you and Maya personally as educators, as partners, and individuals? Okay, here I need to mention in brackets until you think about your answer. You guys spent 24/7 together, often in the car, crossing the country for, you know, hours and hours.
Yeah.
So probably.
So we drove 50,000 miles, basically. We only, in 10 months, we were in, 100 cities, 36 states. We only flew when we absolutely had to. Like, if I couldn't figure out a way to get from A to B in the right time, then we flew. So first of all, we survived.
Still married.
All right, we're both alive, we're still married. I think for me, well, a personal issue, I think for me the most jarring realization was that my brain can only think of so much things at one time, which was really a bummer for me. But I think that I think the most powerful experience was really meeting college students and being on college campuses. Again, we were in North America, so from McGill in Montreal to UC Irvine in Southern California to British Columbia to Duke. And I think that so meeting college students, university students, which again is that we lost our fellowship, meeting them and really understanding and giving a very unique perspective about the challenges that the college students are having post October 7th. I began to call these kids warriors, that these are young people. Some had a very strong Jewish identity coming into it, some didn't, some were Israel focused, some weren't. But looking at how these young people are facing the challenges that the post-October 7th world really, I think on the one hand it's very difficult for me, and I'm really happy that we're doing this fellowship and create an environment where students from all in our fellowship, we had a Sunni guy, we had a Shiite Iranian, we had kids.
We gonna get to the fellowship.
Sorry, but I'm saying that we were able to give a place for diverse ideological, that's what I was trying to say, that we really gave a place for young people that are struggling from across the ideological spectrum. So for me, that was a really pivotal moment. I mean, not a pivotal moment, but a pivotal experience that not only affects me as a person, but affects our work in general in ITME.
You have anything major?
I talked long enough, you could think of a really good answer, because you're probably saying, why is she saying that? So now you can say something much smarter than I did.
Oh, very shortly. Look, all along this very unique journey, 10 months traveling North America, the most powerful thing that I personally, was kind of like feeling was, of course, other than my meetings and encounters, was that I was given a very, very unique opportunity, a very, very rare experience. And I want to believe, and I think that I would not exaggerate if I said that we definitely maximized that opportunity.
That. I mean, I followed along your journey. It's not secret that, we work together. I help you with social media and digital media. So I oftentimes ask you how you guys are even alive and how you are still holding that up and, going from meeting to another meeting. And here, let's, also give some context that when you went to Jewish organizations, we know that the crowd is most of the time, people who are already millennials or a little bit more senior to that. And then you met also people who are, congressmen, so highly political leaders. And then you went to the college campuses and you met the young people, the next generation. And here we are going to turn to ITME fellowship. And before we dive into what that fellowship gives and how it's built up, how did the idea came about? Because that was also something very crazy, I remember.
So as you said, September 11th, we arrived in the States, and our roots, the ITME began as an undergraduate fellowship back in 2012 under the auspices of the Eisenhower Institute. So we were at Gettysburg College running this program from 2012 to 18. 2018, we went to Capitol Hill and for 3 years ran a similar program for staffers from both sides of the aisle. I'm not going to get into the details, but we really began as a fellowship, again, for a wide range of students. And so we landed September 11th. September 13th, we had a board meeting in Baltimore. And somehow, I think it was our treasurer, Diane, or somehow it came up with the idea of doing a fellowship. And then September 15th, Avi was speaking. So we were in the US based on two major partnerships, JCC Association of North America and Hillel. And so Avi was speaking at an event at Hillel called Ohio Loves Israel at Ohio State University. And I said, we're doing a fellowship. Anybody interested? These two people come up. They're like, what is it? I'm like, I have no idea. We just came up with the idea 2 days ago. What do you think it is? Like, when you hear fellowship, what does that mean to you? And this one girl says to me, I think it's an intensive educational experience. I'm like, love it. That's exactly what it is. And from there, we began to build it. So that's how it started. It completely was not part of the plan.
Actually, you guys started off and the first cohort went down with 15 fellows. So how did you select them? What criteria was there, or what process did you use to choose these students?
You can do it.
So basically, again, we went to college campuses, talked about the fellowship. Students that saw Avi recommended their friends. We had a Zoom interview with our board, members of our board. And that was really how we chose them. It was a very personal one-on-one experience. Really, we felt we were looking for students that we felt were really serious and wanted to really have it, dive in and do this intense educational experience. And that's really how, and we were just so fortunate that we really got an incredible group, as we say, from Oregon to London. An incredible group of students. So it was really one by one, person by person, campus by campus, referral by referral. And we worked with our board to choose the most suitable candidates.
The purpose.
Sorry, pardon, go ahead.
The purpose of the fellowship is, in the end of the day, we look at the fellows as what we call ambassadors of change. What does it mean? We think it's very clear that there is a need to insert new layers of understanding of the story of the Middle East, new perspectives that will enrich the discussion, that will create an environment when you can have a constructive discussion among people that have a different perspectives, which is legitimate. And so we believe that through this fellowship, we actually can empower these people, young people, that has the potential to become an influencer in the path ahead. And hopefully they will insert those voices from the Middle East, the authentic voices from the Middle East, of people from the Middle East, experts in their own fields. We are looking at Arabs and Kurds and Persians and Turks and Israelis that will bring to the discussion in the West the missing parts that are so essential and so critical for the comprehensive and much more constructive discussion. So we look at these young people as what we call ambassadors of change, and we are looking for creation of this unique elite club of ambassadors, young people that will become influencers in their different disciplines, professionally or in their social circles. And this is our vision. And I can tell you, based upon already the first cohort that we did, it definitely shows to be a very right direction to go in.
Every week you provided these students with an expert from a region, let's say Saudi Arabia, Syria, Egypt, and there was this lengthy Zoom opportunity to learn from them. How do you ensure the neutrality and the credibility of the voices featured in your sessions? How do you keep the apolitical aspects throughout when all these regions, are kind of sensitive topics?
The key for the success has two major components. One is the context that I'm providing professionally, and the other one is the open discussion with the experts, with the guest expert. And the fellows felt all along the program that all these sessions where they were exposed to different perspectives, different narratives, they agree with some, they did not agree with some of the narratives were totally unknown for them. But I think that one of the major feedbacks that we got from the alumni was that they really loved the fact that they got a non-filtered access to experts from the region. They witnessed an interesting discussion between me and the expert. Sometimes I was challenging the experts, sometimes the experts were challenging me. And obviously, the not less significant is the fact that in every session, the fellows had the opportunity to ask direct questions to the expert, to the guest expert. And so all those things together gave a lot of credibility to our fellowship. Among the many great feedbacks that we got from the alumni, there is one which in my mind is enormously representing the impact of what we are doing. One of our alumni wrote to us and said, I did your ITME fellowship, and I realized, and she was talking specifically about the story of Israelis and Palestinians, and she said, I realized for the first time ever that I can be both pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian, and that is fine, and that works for them. And I think that this is a great example of what we are trying to achieve.
I want to add to that, if I could add to that answer. I think it's important to differentiate, because personally, I struggle with what you just asked. In other words, how do you keep that apolitical? Because some of the people that Avi has a very unique brand. I always say, Avi has a very unique way of educating. He's like, I guess, a unicorn in that way. I think he takes the most political issues and approaches it in the most apolitical manner. But the guests that we have, but no one, he's like a unicorn. Like, no one else in the world can do what he does, right? But the fact that we're bringing diverse opinions, that's where I find like that we're apolitical, right? So we're not promoting one agenda. We're bringing people with different opinions that we feel are voices that need to be heard. So that's where the apolitical, it's not that the guests, because I struggle with that. That's why I want to like readdress your question. The guests that we have are not apolitical necessarily, but bringing those diverse voices, in my mind, is what makes us apolitical, that we're not promoting a single agenda. We're basically saying, here's the region, here are the voices. We want you to create your own perspectives based on the information and the experiences that we're offering you.
So it all goes back to what we touched upon earlier, that you are trying to teach these students how to think and not what to think. So I think both of the answers just reaffirm that approach and that methodology that you are using. How do you handle participants? And I don't really recall having any of that in Discord, but should you continue in the future, this might come up. So how do you handle participants who write with deeply entrenched narratives or ideological kind of like rigidity, so to say? So who are really, have their narratives that, do you think your approach still can make some flexibility there? Or do you hope to achieve that?
So I want to say one thing. So first of all, we're in the middle of recruiting for the next cohort. We also already have 5 amazing candidates that came to us even before we began to promote it. So if anybody has any undergraduate students, graduate students, young leaders, please let us know, because we're in the middle of interviewing now. Do you want to answer how you would handle that?
Yes, basically in my work, whether if it's with the students or with other audiences, always, and as you can understand, obviously during this tour, there are lots of tough questions that are coming up from different people, which is inevitable, and that's fine. I always validate the legitimacy of people making their own perspectives and narratives are respected. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to fully agree with that or partially agree with that, but I definitely start with the place of validating and respecting people's narratives and people's emotions and people's thoughts. What I'm always trying to do is to bring some new element to the discussion that is absent, that I think will help those people maybe to have a more comprehensive understanding of the picture. And for those of them who are looking for ways to positively impact the complex reality, I think it is enormously valuable, because they are feeling that on the one hand, their narratives and their perspectives and their thoughts are not undermined, they are not ignored, they are very respected for, and at the same time, they get an additional perspectives, a professional perspective, that maybe could help them to have a more cohesive, a comprehensive understanding of a complex reality, and empower them to play more positive role in hopefully impacting positively a complex reality.
But I really want to
trigger it a little bit further. Sorry, Maya, then I give you the voice. It just made me think. So when I act as an activist or I speak, I always have this imagined minimal common denominator that I would need to have with the other party in order to have a constructive communication and dialogue. For example, if someone cannot arrive at the conclusion that Hamas is a terrorist organization, I do not think that there is a future dialogue there, that anything can be achieved, because the gap between us is so far that I don't think we can, connect in any level. If there is this common denominator and parallel to that, we have so many disagreements, I think we can start having conversations and learn from each other, understand each other's perspectives. So do you have anything like this that you hold true? Or, going one step further, could anyone who doesn't think that Hamas is a terrorist organization join the fellowship? And I know this is a little bit of a triggering question, but I felt like we are in a safe place to ask it.
No, you should answer that.
Look, first, there is the factual based aspect that I'm always referring to. You mentioned the fact that Hamas is a terror organization, and factually based. Indeed, Hamas is the fact designated or labeled by most Western powers as terror organization. So this is one layer. Then what we need to bring, and this is exactly what we are doing, is to, and you give Hamas, and it's a good example. I'm saying to people, look, Hamas is not going to disappear. It's part and parcel of the Palestinian people, though he is being labeled as a terror organization. Here is the significant part that I need to bring to the discussion in Western circles to make the discussion more, I would say, effective. What I bring to the discussion is the fact that in the end of the day, In the Arab world, including the Palestinians, they are holding Hamas accountable as a governmental power in Gaza. And this is something that I can tell you based upon my many meetings with people in the West, that this is something that is understood because, my job is not to echo facts like Hamas is terror organization. Okay, we know that. My job is to basically make people in the West exposed to the aspects that they don't have an access to and understand what does it really mean in the context of the eyes of the people from the Middle East, and particularly Palestinians, when they are looking at the role of Hamas and the responsibility of Hamas. Unfortunately, Hamas has been exempted by circles in the West from governmental accountability, while at the same time, Arab public opinion, Arab governments, including the Palestinians themselves, actually hold Hamas accountable as the power that has been ruling Gaza Strip since 2007. This is the significant part that I'm bringing to the discussion. I'm not about, labeling one or another, but basically bringing the element that is absent from the discussion that is crucial if you really want to understand this better, the complexity, and for those who want to maybe impact positively the reality.
But I want to underscore that this is not that, that when Avi speaks in an organization or in the fellowship, this is not about Israel. As we said at the beginning, our philosophy is that in order to understand Israel, you have to understand the Middle East, and our strategy is apolitical Middle East education. So the fellowship, which is called Voices from the Middle East about the Middle East, it was 14 sessions. It'll be more or less the same the next time, featuring Arab Muslim experts from across the Middle East. This is really about learning about the Middle East. And what we found, whether it's in a briefing, because you talked about, yes, our main partners are Jewish organizations, but that doesn't mean that all the people that attend are Jewish. And it certainly doesn't mean that all the people that are attending have a monolithic perspective on the region. And again, so I think whether it's the fellowship where we were interviewing students and they're like students that were involved in all kinds of fellowships, nothing like this exists. This is about the Middle East and learning about the Middle East. So if you are a person that wants to learn, and we've had people that have come to Avi's sessions that have very strong opinions, but what people that come and they want to learn, which is most people, they really leave transformed, because again, it's this educational experience, connecting the dots, this holistic picture of the region that doesn't threaten anybody's values. So I think that, again, we don't ask the people that are applying, what's your ideology? We know at the end of our fellowship, we know that we had students that were vastly on different ends of the spectrum. And that's really our uniqueness, that we're the third way, that we're creating a space where people from different ideologies can come together. And it's really a bridge building experience around a topic that's usually extremely divisive.
No, it's absolutely an important and crucial point. And just for the record, me, the non-Jew, always learn also from Avi. And when I was at the closing of the fellowship, honestly, those students restored my faith a little bit in the future, how they were able to think critically. And many of them admitted, how their perceptions about certain topics changed, shifted, were questioned, challenged throughout the fellowship. So I think what we are seeing as society today now with our 3 seconds attention span, is exactly the lack of critical thinking, that people just give the like, give the comment, as Avi mentioned at the beginning, the sensationalism, the yellow journalism, all are taking over our spaces. And I think we have very few opportunities to actually learn. And I always find it funny when I say the safe place. I just live in New York for way too long at this point, because the way it's used here, safe place, it's always, kind of everybody's safe except the people who are not belonging to that narrative that they are repeating. But what I mean by safe place here is that at the cohort you had Jews, non-Jews, as I said, American, Canadian, from the UK. So all of the students came from a very different background. And as I always say, we are all the product of our own environment. Unless we are brave enough to go out of that comfort zone and meet people who have a totally different reality, we can't change, we can't develop. And that's why I think using the term ambassador of change is just so fitting here. And then as the viewers are getting to know you, I want to encourage everyone to feel free to drop your questions in the comments if you have. And in the meantime, I'm just going to head to my next question, which is, what are the main misconceptions you think people have about the Middle East? So here I'm looking again for a couple of examples that you faced during the 10 years, that no matter whether you were in Idaho or New Jersey or California or New York City, the misconceptions just kept repeating themselves.
Well, I always indicated there is a major challenge, which is an objective one, and that is the fact that, first, Western audience is rarely, of course, mastering the languages of the region. The meaning of that is it is totally dependent upon a mediated information. Sometimes, or even more than sometimes, this is not only mediated information, it's a translated one, and it's sometimes manipulated one. So it's already by itself creating a challenge to understand the complex reality. And the Middle East is a complex for itself enough. And then there is another challenge. We talked about the social media, the age of the narratives and the slogans and the buzzwords and the sound bites, which is now going to be even further challenging with the rise of AI and everything that comes along with that. I would say to a large extent that the need of people in real education is deeply an emotional and a psychological need that basically connects directly to the need of people to feel that they have the ability to restore some sort of control over their reality and understanding of reality. And I think that this is one of the major reasons why we got such a strong, wonderful comments and reactions from people, because they feel that the professional education that they gain, the intelligent, I'm using the word intelligent, education, the perspectives, it kind of like restores their ability to a little bit understand more better a complex reality.
So let me give a few concrete examples. So one of the concrete examples is, and Avi's been saying this for years, that the common narrative is that it's the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that really impacts the geopolitics of the Middle East. And Avi's tenet is that it's the opposite. It's the geopolitics of the region that impact the trajectory of the conflict. So when Avi's giving a talk, I say that Avi's briefings are not historical lectures, but it's giving the historical context to understand the current geopolitical reality. We talked in the beginning about things that have nothing to do with Israel, but impact it, which is, Iran, the Sunni Shiite split, that Iran as a Shiite is trying to regain hegemony that it feels was stolen from them in the 7th century, right? So you talk about this historical context that really impacts geopolitics. The other thing is that people, they walk away from Avi's presentation where, as I said, he connects the dots. The signature ITME structure of a briefing is, how did we get here? Where are we and where are we going? And they come in looking at the region through this, right? It's like Israel is the only, this conflict is the whole Middle East. They don't, not that they don't know, but they don't connect the dots of the other conflicts. So they walk away with this really holistic perspective of like, oh my gosh, like I never knew any of this. Like I didn't understand like how are these different parties, Hezbollah, Hamas, how are they connected? What's Jordan, how Saudi Arabia? So the misconception is that kind of we have Israel and the Palestinian conflict and the rest of the region, it's just kind of, not say it's not there, but they just, the conception is that they never understood that there was any connection between what goes on in the region and this area. So I think those are two of the
I
misconceptions.
think in a nutshell, one of the quotes that I like to quote a lot is in one of my events. In the end of the event, this lady came to me, this woman. She said, you know, now I can walk away and I understand the news. And I think that was one of the most powerful, wonderful feedback that I get, you know, when people feel that they can walk and now they can understand the news. And that is very significant.
Yes, that is indeed. And in the meantime, someone nicely flipped my question, and I think that makes a very interesting one. Did you find certain misconceptions specific to different regions of North America?
In the context of the region, you mean?
No, the different area. Did you find different perspectives in different areas of North America?
Well, the Republicans, they thought differently. You went to Democrat. I'm not trying to give more context to this question, but this is how kind of I would translate, or more non-Jews, more misconception, vice versa.
I think that the diversity of the questions, one of the most diverse events we had was actually the very last one, which was in New Orleans. And it was at the JCC, the professionals walked in, they've never seen like any of these people. It was such a diverse audience. So I think that not that like the misconceptions, but I think that the location where we were kind of would in some way be exhibited through the diversity of the questions that people would have. So that's how so not necessarily misconceptions.
Look, I mean, there has been clearly places like, for example, some of the campuses that are known to be more, let's say, progressive ones in that regard. That actually, you know, definitely in the discussion with the students, it was very clear that that was the dominant perspective, which is totally legit, of course. And actually, honestly, I mean, for me, it was always wonderful to get together with these people because it's a great opportunity to understand their perspectives. It's a great opportunity to engage in a dialogue. And I can tell you that I have been engaged in a dialogue with people that are coming from a very different perspectives. And some of them are coming from a very clear, fixed outlook. But it was very interesting to be engaged in the discussion with these people. And I can add, I think, humbly, but honestly, that in almost all of the cases, there was something that made the people that came with a very strong perspective, whether from this perspective or that perspective, to look a little bit different at the reality following the briefing that they heard from me.
And I really do want to emphasize the diversity. We were in East Bay JCC in San Francisco, and I mean they had from their nursery school teachers, you know, to the head of the Jewish Cultural Studies department, you know, or the Hebrew Studies department. And I think Avi's ability to really talk across these vast knowledge bases also is really unique. And obviously in a situation like that, because you have people that have such diverse knowledge bases, obviously their questions are very different, you know, from very basic, you know, wanting to understand very basic terms to much more complex issues.
I just want to also underline that Avi mentioned a couple like minutes earlier, you know, that he's praised for his patience and the way, the calmness, the voice of reason, for example. And I think that's really missing today, because you go on social media, and again, I'm not going to go into my whole spiel about the influencer role in this, but I think people are losing what makes a difference at the end of the day. That the discussion, the actual face-to-face dialogue. And sometimes, yes, you need an enormous patience to the other side when they are coming from very far from you, or really lacking the knowledge, but they have this presented knowledge. And so I really feel that the way forward is exactly this, to have this conversation. That lady you mentioned, you know, who says that now she can actually understand the news. I mean, that should be like highlighted on your website, that is the feedback. I think that is one of the most strongest, you know, feedback ever out there, that you had someone to think and understand. But let's go to the next question. We have a couple of minutes left, and I just want to play with the thought of ITME fellowship for the future in the sense that what do you hope students will remember, let's say 5 years from now, about your fellowship? Or where would you like these fellows to be 5 years from now, and how can they utilize and use the knowledge that they were gathering during the fellowship?
I want to take the first question. What we're doing right now is that we're actually building an alumni network. One of our students from the first cohort is going to build the alumni network. And I hope that they will take away that this ability to have a diversity of opinions, and that you can have diversity and be able to, I'm not articulating it well, but that's what I hope. I hope that they can build a community of current fellows and future fellows, and in cooperation with all of our educators, that they have it, that they remember that they had an educational experience that exposed them to something new, and that from that they built a community that will grow of people that can have that can have a diversity of ideologies, and take something that's very, again, in the environment we're in, that is very divisive, and they can make it something that is inclusive and strengthens individuals and community. So that's what I hope that they take away.
My vision is in 5 years from now that people that will be in politics, in media, in public relations, in academia, and they will be in the very first phase of a wonderful career professionally. People will get together either in a party or whatever, and one person will say, I'm an alumni of the first ITME fellowship, and the other person will say, wow, man, respect, I'm the alumni of the third ITME program.
But I want to say something else. I think that look, a lot of what, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'll say it. I'm not Avi. I can say things Avi can't say, maybe. So I'm the spokesperson for the speaker. But I think a lot of what drives our work is this feeling that the classic Hasbara is not the most effective way of approaching this very challenging topic, and that I hope that the next generation, because I do think that we're witnessing the emergence of a very resilient generation of young leaders, Jewish and not Jewish. Again, ITME is not, we're very blessed with diversity of religions, ideologies, but that people will go forward and put into their circles, professionally and personally. If you want to understand Israel, you have to understand the Middle East and the importance of understanding the neighborhood. And when it comes to education, Israel education, general education, when it comes to organizations that are involved in advocacy efforts, that they can insert this mantra of understanding the Middle East, again, in an apolitical way. That's my.
I will add to that something that we have learned during our years of work, and we are looking at more than a decade of work. We have learned as a fact that ITME approach is very unique in the sense that it enables people who support Israel to be supportive not out only of obligation, but from a better understanding, but not less significant, it enables people that have a legitimate criticism of Israel to be able to be willing to be more receptive to some of the things that Israel is facing, and to do that without feeling that they have to compromise their core values and their major narratives. And I think that these are two major issues that are enormously significant in that context.
Excellent points. And before I go to my last question, I'm just going to show up again last time your book, and I'm going to link it in my story. Again, if anyone wants to learn then this is the book. Again, very apolitical, very factual. And the last question is you guys actually broke the news that there is going to be a second fellowship. So the first part of this question is, how can people apply to the fellowship? And those of them who would like you to speak somewhere, Avi, then how can they get in touch and book you to speak at various events? Because as we know, you are planning to be back in the US at least in October and November, or some weeks in those months. And so how can people get in touch with you?
So on our website, www.insidethemiddle-east.com, I'm sure that we're good. We're actually, I own InsideTheMiddleEast.org. We'll probably migrate to InsideTheMiddleEast.com was not available when we started, but now InsideTheMiddleEast.org is. I think we'll probably migrate to that over the next. So on our website, on their website is a link to the fellowship, ITME fellowship. We have a whole page about it. People can apply, they can get more information. And also on our website, there is a contact button, but Maya at InsideTheMiddle-East.com. I'm sure you'll put it.
Avi at avimelamed.com.
Avi at avimelamed.com. Whatever's easiest, go to the website, email us, either way. Yeah. So
I said it in the comments, and Avi has an Instagram page, has a YouTube page where the long form videos are up. So interviews, longer topics, a longer breadth of content. On Instagram, we keep on sharing his whereabouts and shorter content. Then there is the website. So you're more than welcome to connect with them. And I want,
the dates are October 10th to December 16th. We're already booked in New York, New Jersey, Florida. So please reach out. But dates are booking up, but we still have dates available. So yeah, those are the dates.
Wonderful. It was wonderful to have you. I hope that, we could provide added value to people. And again, if you know anyone who is a good fit for this educational cohort, then don't hesitate to share this with them. And you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you, Virat. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Didier.
Yep.
Thank you.
And not for the cat.
All right, and the cat.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
10 months ago, we left our home, our cat, our kibbutz, and set out on a mission to provide authentic, apolitical Middle East education to as many people as possible. So we came to North America and launched ITME on the Road 360. From classrooms to campuses, living rooms to lecture halls, we hit the road to educate, equip, empower. ITME stands apart. We don't tell people what to think. We give them the tools to think for themselves. Since September, we've delivered nearly 200 sessions in almost 100 cities across 40 states and provinces, providing clarity amidst chaos.
This has been one of the most impactful events that we've had on this campus.
Avi provides not only a perspective, but a method of education that I have yet to see anyone be able to provide.
By zooming out, you have to understand Israel, you need to understand the Middle East.
You're hearing all these slogans and all these, buzzwords here, right? You're not really getting the depth of the complexity of the conflict.
And this is by far the most in-depth and knowledgeable analysis,
which are not talked about as much or with as much clarity, just in wider media.
And he brings that all together to make for really engaging, really informative sessions that teens and young people can follow along with.
As a Shia Ismaili Muslim student, it really filled a hole in my heart that I've been struggling with since October 7th.
In these critical times, equipping people with unbiased education isn't just important, it's essential. We're ready to keep going, but we can't do it alone. If you believe in the power of context over sound bites, nuance over noise, and education grounded in facts, then we invite you to join us. Together, we can shape a generation empowered with the context, courage, and critical thinking to lead.